Greetings, Geekbeard here. Guiding forces are helping us to be better than what befell the prior universe. That's right. Universes grow, they live, but they also die, just like us, and are reborn. But there's no point in that process unless there's evolution, unless there's improvement from one universe to the next, which is absolutely what I believe in. And if you analyze the situation seriously yourself, I think you'll end up reaching the same conclusion. But what are the guiding forces? Well, depending on what you believe, it might be God, or it might be angels, guiding angels, or spirit guides. But we need that help because the potential exists for massive pain and failure in our lives and in our societies, especially in modern times when we're currently moving into a very technological phase of society and existence, and there's a huge danger that elites will impose biometric control over us, that we will sort of degenerate into a complete biometric control grid society where everybody will be microchipped and frequently scanned and tracked and controlled through technology. And some of that technology will be very tempting and very good and effective, so a lot of people are going to want the technology. I mean, mobile phones have already kind of done that to a degree, and we know most of us are aware that we are substantially getting tracked by at least major tech companies when we use our mobile phones, and even when we're not using them, probably. And Snowden files and other leaks have revealed that some governments have close relationships with the big tech companies. So there are also demons out there. You know, demons are also real, and they're also tempting us downwards and towards the negative outcomes that have happened in previous civilizations and previous universes. And that's why existence has to learn from all these things and become better than the previous universes. Otherwise, the demons will win, and they'll tempt us downwards towards ways of total decrepitude and degeneracy. Okay, and I've written quite a bit about this, so let's dive straight in, and beginning with a quote. The great distinction between the angelic and demonic worlds can be understood thusly. The world of the upper and good accepts the existence of death, comes to terms with it, and as a result comes to celebrate life as the ultimate wedding with time. The demonic world, on the other hand, seeks to break down barriers, relativize, generalize all things. The ultimate such barrier is life versus death. As such, the demonic world is not a world of spirits entirely separate from your own, but a sort of continuum with it. And now the response to the quote. So all the structure we experience could potentially have developed in response to demonic entropization. You see, entropy is very consistent with that idea of the demonic world is not being separate from our own, but being a sort of continuum, because entropy is all about continuums. This might go some way towards successfully implying the weirdness of it all, especially life versus death, which is one of the weirdest of all things. Well, hard to disagree with that. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why am I alive? Why are any of us alive? Why do we have flesh and bone rather than nothing? Why, rather than metal, for example, why aren't we robots? Why is anything the way that it is? It's all very weird, really. If you take a step back and try to think about it all, it's all weird. Okay, after a break, we resume. Wanted to think some more about demons/anthropization, except it's painful to think the entire cosmos isn't built on love, but anti-love. In other words, anti-hate. In other words, a response to the negative civilizational outcomes, for example, mass biometric tracking and control, that occurred in previous universes. There is clearly no God, then. Well, that depends a lot on how you see/characterize him. So, the laws of the universe as they are, and its distribution of stuff, primarily serve the purpose of anti-love. In other words, anti-hate. In other words, resistance to the negative civilizational trends that occurred in the prior universe. In other words, compensating for the meaningful failures of past worlds and universes, which is exactly what I was just saying. This is very consistent with my various beliefs of building/evolution as the primary thing happening on large timescales of the universe, and timescales beyond one universe, stretching across multiple universes. It's just deeper, being involved in morality, etc. So, all past universes perished in ignominy, in total decrepitude. Surely, something bad is required to justify rebirth in different form. The massive effort to achieve something different. Or are we just locking ourselves into a negative belief system? I really need a partner of effervescent feminine positivity to balance me, don't I? If there are any effervescent feminine partners out there that are at all interested, I'm single. But yes, I definitely do need some effervescent feminine positivity in my life. Okay, continuing after a bit of a break. We have too much freedom. That's kind of the scary part of it all, isn't it? How on earth to rationalize that? I mean, clearly, we are supposed to create our own sense of morality. Yet, if there isn't really quite as much freedom as there appears, this must all be guided on some large scale, in some invisible way. Not merely invisible, indeed. It must be very subtle, yet also not ineffective. Strange indeed. There are those guiding forces I'm talking about. You can't reboot the whole universe without something existing to ensure that the new universe is going to be better than the previous one, or else there's no point in rebooting them in cycles. The universes themselves have to evolve. They have to get better, because evolution is like the ultimate law of everything, even in civilization, even in morality. We have to be more moral than the civilizations and the people that existed in those prior universes, or even within our one universe. This is like one of the ultimate actions, one of the ultimate acting forces behind the scenes that we're getting into the meat of here. I mean, seriously, if the whole universe had to be rebooted to create us, to create the potential for something better, particular more morally capable, then it wouldn't leave things entirely to chance, or entirely to our whims, I would think. But maybe it sort of has to, partly because morality is hard to define globally. The problem with talking like that, though, is that it puts freedom to the fore. Makes it feel more like that is the ultimate point of all things. And it could well be. In some sense, even such a meta question may be up to us. All that upper powers would like is for things to be better. We can decide for ourselves what that means. For me personally, I've significantly struggled to benefit from the freedom afforded by the current age. Maybe I can rationalize myself as a different kind of person, someone that believes that there are some absolutes that need to be better, like morality, beauty, playfulness, and hidden things. This makes you a specific kind of person, which is potentially interesting. I'm a person of absolutes. And here's another quote. In other news, I have begun to accept the gravitational domination of the broader cosmos, with all the exploration of colliding galaxies yesterday. And the response to the quote, being a person of absolutes, doesn't this immense scale of chaos trouble you deeply? Yes, I suppose so, actually. And now back to the previous line of thought. What kind of freedom? What if you just have a highly developed sensitive sense for that which is better? I push such things under the carpet, though. I subsume them to my mechanistic thinking. For example, I think blockchain is one of the highest things that possibly could be. But that's kind of true, considering the complete state that the world is in, surely. But then you ask, can it be done? And everything reduces to that. So you then spend inordinate time trying to work it out. Because no matter how romantic you get, if it can't be done, it can't be done. And you'll possibly fall very flat on your face. Maybe not, though. I mean, there are worse things in life. Maybe you could navigate all this stuff successfully with your highly developed sensibilities. But therein lies the problem. Successfully. More mechanisticism, which basically means determinism. Would you prefer the word artfully? It seems like nitpicking, but maybe words actually do matter. If I'm only trying to succeed, then I'm a mechanist, no more. And I'm pretty sure that is not anywhere near good enough for me. Okay, I'm back and ready for the next chapter. Geekbeard here, continuing this epic journey of philosophy and spirituality. Well. We had quite the cathartic revelation yesterday. It's hard to put into words exactly what it is. Basically, It's the concept that there is ethical, mystical value underlying all things. As the prior universes and / worlds must have suffered significant failings in this regard. And the primary need for a new one comes from the failings of the past. Right now, I'm just waiting for things that have significance in that regard, as clearly most things have no great significance. My new philosophy is like a third way / dimension, because it incorporates freedom. More than that, it even recognizes that freedom for freedom's sake is insufficient. Freedom versus entropy is still one of the core binaries, to the degree that such is a helpful characterization when such things are generally asymmetrical. But to that we add the dimension of absolutions. Quality / value, if you want references, but those words are highly inadequate. Especially in my case, who considers morality a significant part of it. Now, quality and value are two kind of key words from some key books that I've read. Quality is a word that is used extensively as a sort of magical concept in the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which is a really great book, and I highly recommend it. Value has a similar kind of magic to it in the work of Jordan Peterson, particularly his book 12 Rules for Life, which I also really highly recommend. And they both have this magical quality to them, this idea that in order for the world to work, in order for you to work and function as you do, there has to be this magic that connects you to things without there being a logical or rational or even mechanistic reason for that to have occurred. Yeah, that's a kind of a good way of putting it. You have to read some of those books and a bit if you want to come to a more nuanced understanding of why those words have magical power to those authors. Anyway, I shall continue. Freedom and entropy aren't even very good opposites. It should just be a triune system. Freedom, entropy, the absolute. Don't quite like the term the absolute, but it cuts to the core of what it is. It's fine as long as you're able to appreciate that even that must be tempered. In that case, the absolute oughtn't to be something all that fearful. It would still be nice to have a different word. Beauty? That is too superficial and can't include morality very well. Well, I certainly have freedom to browse JB Hi-Fi's 2041 phone choices. You see, I was looking for a new phone at the time, the new phone which I eventually got and through which I am currently communicating with you. Happens to be a Motorola G53, if anyone's interested. Not bad so far. Check it out. Yesterday's stuff really began with contemplating the nature of demons. In response to a famous earlier quote, I wrote, So all the structure we experience could potentially have developed in response to demonic entropization. This might go some way towards successfully implying the weirdness of it all, especially life, death, which is one of the weirdest of all things. Once again, a quote from yesterday. I mean, seriously, if the whole universe had to be rebooted to create us, to create the potential for something better, in particular more morally capable, then it wouldn't leave things entirely to chance or entirely to our whims, I would think. This is getting to the crux of it. There has to be some God energy, some force that is guiding us towards whatever it is that is better. Either that or we surrender to the philosophy of quality/value from the respective book sources, which are purely individual/mechanistic almost. Not really enough for me. If the cosmos did this to us, then the cosmos has something invested in it. Guided freedom, then. Okay, back from a brief break. Now we're moving on to the next chapter. Here we go. Wednesday's philosophy was epic, but now that's over and I have to continue somehow. Just the usual struggles. The core of it was demonic transcension of all the integers, the rules and structures of life as we know it, which we conceive of as being much like an entropy of sorts. Then there was the idea that all previous worlds or universes have done bad things, which they have, which would be how it learns to create new laws of physics, etc., in order that something somehow better will be created subsequently. But it isn't simple. And so we find ourselves in very questionable circumstances recently, particularly with very questionable actions and powers of government. Quote, I suppose indeed we could say that light is the most connective and therefore unifying energy as far as we know currently. End quote. But only because we see it could we conclude that. Other, more invisible kind of forces/energies are surely also in action. In particular, we very much need to believe in the guiding forces, so that freedom for freedom's sake isn't the ultimate goal of everything, even though it is to a large degree. Quote, it seems I have been born into some kind of barbaric universe. That is the only conclusion I can come to, looking at the pictures of how galaxies collide and form in such multitudinously weird ways. It seems that this universe is very young still, and yet the advancement issues we face are significant. Must be related to baggage from something preceding us, i.e., the prior universe. To have to stop thinking and start doing is the pain I always resent. I've got something to do in about 10 minutes, for example. I've sort of got nothing to talk about or even think about. And my writings from last year are getting more scrappy as well. Dystopias. That's what we believe can form under civilizational advancement, all too easily. That's partly where we've been recently, and partly where some countries like China seem to be heading, and thus perhaps also us. I don't hate the elite. That would be pointless. They are like predators, and their predation ultimately even makes us stronger. Quote, I think I'm actually about settled on this belief that this is a barbaric, youthful cosmos, as would be suggested by the pain inherent to its great separateness and lack of unity. I do believe there is evolution going on between universes, though. I tend to believe evolution is practically the ultimate rule of all things. It's just a little hard to imagine how it all could possibly have had some kind of beginning. End quote. Actually, it's easier to imagine things having a beginning if it's all based on evolution, really, as it implies eternal monotonic complexification. That file also had extensive discussion of my techniques for manipulating E-curves, in other words, elliptic curves, e.g. continued fractions on the real curve. Wouldn't be surprised if I hadn't thought about that practically at all in the year since then. I think I had a weekend morning which partly featured it within the last 3 to 4 months. Quote, I don't think logic is really inherently about unity. End quote. This is also somewhat interesting and persuasive. Logic is all about relating things to one another, combining them. Thus, a complete logical understanding of some space of things is their unification. Quote from a story, you have to turn off the water splash, that's what they're telling me. It's draining the planet and soon it will be destabilized. Hradnek cranked as hard as he could. Slowly the wheel turned until finally the hose went limp and its issue was a mere trickle. What we are doing can have only symbolic power, Golod. Can it really achieve anything significant? For we are facing something very large indeed. Of course, that's the secret. The upper cosmos is a very religious place. Even small acts, if the heart and spirit is in the right place, can grant the necessary consent for larger phenomena to be activated. End quote. My desire for ancient religious practices to have actual meaning or power. I still want that, don't I? But how could it be so? It might make sense if the kind of emotion spirit of the people had unseen power. Such a thing would conceptually have brought the ancient aliens here, and also discouraged the wise ones from attempting to abuse humans and the planet. Quote, experiences, That's all that's left when you boil the rest away. End quote. I suppose being a person of absolutes, I think created things that aren't experience in their own right are still intrinsically valuable. But if there was no one around to experience them, would they still mean anything? Yes. No. I don't know. It's pretty conceivable to be able to create things that can transcend the death of a civilization, or perhaps even a species. Quote, that kind of feels like the natural way of things, our natural evolutionary trajectory. Destroy freedom. Biometrically track and control everyone. Cyberneticize everyone as they are increasingly computationally unified. End quote. And I think about what happened with the pandemic, and I despair that whatever the positive powers did to help was not directly available to me. But you need more faith. Besides, if all you do is spend all your time inside your mind, indoors, how can you hope to get touched by the positive energy which is being channeled through the mass of people? Pandemic. We used a trigger word. Let it hereby be acknowledged that this is a sacred document protected by the power of the Fermat hexagon. Bind. Okay, I think that's all for today, guys. Geekbeard signing out. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, drop a comment, like or subscribe or share. Love to see it. Geekbeard signing out till the next one. Cheers.